Hey you guys, welcome to another video review from Rebecca from Homeschool On. Today is a really exciting day because I finally get to show you inside the complete physical course set for the History Year 1 from the Good and the Beautiful. Here it is. This has been much anticipated and much requested from you guys. So here it is. I want to show you inside all of these amazing resources. We're going to be talking about the Keys of History board game, the Read Aloud pack that you can get, by the way, for cheaper than you're going to find anywhere else, as well as the Big Book of History Stories and your course book. We're going to talk about Year 1. We're going to talk about using it for multiple ages. We're going to talk about using it for multiple grades and moving forward how to use it in sequence for your kids, depending on if you're going to repeat it or different options that you have. We're going to talk about content in the future year bundles that are coming out soon. And so this is going to be a really in-depth review that you do not want to miss. So bear with me, grab yourself a cup of tea or coffee, and let's dig in. All right, so first and foremost, let's talk about the price of this entire course set. Now, the physical course set does not come with a Read Aloud book pack. That is something you purchase separately. It comes with a History Year 1 course book. It comes with the Big Book of History Stories, and it comes with the Keys of History board game. So you get these 3 items in your course, and it's going to cost you like under $80. Now remember, this is a program that can be used from grades 1 to 12, so you really can adapt this, use it with multiple children, and use it over and over and over again. And yes, I do recommend repeating it, by the way. So you're going to get multiple use out of it. So you have to think of it as the broader scope of this is a resource that can be reused. You also get in this a digital version of the Student Explorers. So that is a pack that you can use that's going to have coloring pages, that's going to have age-appropriate kind of puzzles and just activity pages for the kids to complete as they're also working through this program. So you have kind of a hands-on physical written portion of it together with your reading portion of it, and then your hands-on kinesthetic game portion of it. So this is the course set, and this is for Year 1. And first, I want to show you inside what the scope and sequence is. So let's take a look at that. All right, so in the very beginning, in your table of contents, it tells you kind of the topics that are covered. So you're going to start off with ancient history. Now, if those of you out there that are not familiar with the Good and the Beautiful, it is written from a very neutral Christian kind of background perspective. So we start with creation and Adam and Noah, and we kind of start with biblical history and move into more of world history. Everything has a Christian, God created the world perspective, and that comes across in all of the different lessons. So you start off with creation, you move on to ancient Egypt, the kids are making their own oral presentations, you get to Joseph, and then Egypt from 600 BC to modern day. Unit 2 is the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. So you're talking about ancient Britain, the spread of Christianity in England, William the Conqueror, the scientific revolution, all those different things, okay? So Unit 3, you're getting into the French and Indian War through the Revolutionary War. So now you're talking about New France, young George Washington, the French and Indian War, reasons for a revolution, the Sons of Liberty and the Boston Tea Party, the sacrifices of the signers in the Declaration of Independence, the end of the Revolutionary War. Then you are getting to Unit 4, which takes you to the Victorian era, the history of flight, and the Cold War era. So you have Queen Victoria, the Victorian period, Florence Nightingale, the space race, Ronald Reagan, the fall of communism. So a couple things I want to say right off the bat is that this is not intended to be everything for history. There's a 4-year program that the Good and the Beautiful has and or is putting out. So this is just the first year in that series. So as far as African American or other social economic things that you think, okay, this doesn't have it in here, it is coming and it's heavily introduced, especially in year 3 and year 4. Secondly, for a lot of my followers are here with me in Canada, and hopefully it's not cold where you are right now. And so for my fellow Canadians, a lot of questions are, how heavy is it in US history? Because obviously we want to have some Canadian history in there. And as you can see from kind of looking over the table of contents, there's really only one unit that focuses on US history in year 1. The rest of the units are kind of ancient history, medieval history, and then the Victorian era and broader, right? So you're not too focused on US history. For us and our family, we're not concerned about it at all. I don't mind my kids learning about those things. I think that's still important for them. And then we're just going to have to supplement with some Canadian history as well and Canadian geography to make sure that we're also, learning about where we live. But I just want to make sure that we cover those bases from the very beginning. So let's take a look. Right now, I want to show you inside everything so you have an idea of how this is laid out. So I'm going to take you inside a couple of the lessons. So in the very beginning, it tells you the items that you need for the course, how long the lessons are. They're designed to take around 60 minutes. There's 20 minutes for a read aloud book of your choice. Your student explorers, there's one for older students, there's one for younger students. So older ones may need a little bit more time. It can take you less time depending on how long you're reading. So it really is, it gives you an overview of exactly how you can use this. Next is your audio recordings, which I didn't even mention to you. Inside your year 1 course book, and I can't show you this page because it tells you where you access it, but there is a special link that you can go to access audio drama recordings that help your kids get even more out of the history. I don't know about you, but my kids love listening to dramatizations, and they're really well done. There's music, there's different voices. I mean, it's interesting, it's engaging, it's a story, and it really just helps take you back to that era or time or moment and make it more relatable to you. All of my kids enjoy listening to the audio dramas, and that is another really key feature of the history. Now, then it also talks to you about the Keys of History board game and shows you kind of how you're going to play it, what's included. If you have only children in kindergarten or younger, it's recommended that you wait until grade 1. So that's another question that I get asked a lot. And I'm detouring a little bit, but I feel like this is important to address. A lot of people come to me with kids who are like 4 and 5, and they say, what are you doing for history? And I say, we're doing the good and the beautiful. And they say, that's great, I want to start with that. And I think, if they're 4 and 5, unless you have older kids, it's not necessary to be covering world history at that point. My kids all do it together. So I have 5 children. My youngest is 4, just turned 4, and my oldest is going to be 11 this summer. So we do it all together as a family. But my 4-year-old rolls around on the floor. She's not getting really anything out of it. She might remember key phrases. She has her own Student Explorers book. Yes, it's very important that she colors on very intricately and likes to participate with us. For her, it's more about learning how to sit still, and it is being a part of what we're doing as a family, but she's really not getting a whole lot out of it. And there's quite a bit of reading involved. You're reading a read aloud, you're reading from here. There's quite a bit of reading or sitting quietly. You're listening to an audio drama. So for really young kids, if that is the oldest child that you have, there is no need to start with something like this until a little bit later. This would be something for like grade 1 up, and it can work for grade 1 all the way through grade 12, so you can use it with multiple ages. So I don't want to deter you from using this, but I do want to make sure that you're aware of the fact that likely if you have a 4 and 5-year-old, they're going to be rolling around on the floor. Unless you have one of those really, really, really amazing kids that just listen really well and absorb everything like a sponge when they're 4. But most of our 4-year-olds are pretty active and have a hard time with that. So just saying. Okay, so it also gives you a whole bunch of read aloud suggestions. Then we get into memorization. So I want to show you inside of here so you can see in depth. It's giving you some actual poems. And it is telling you that throughout this year, you're going to be working, your kids are going to choose some poems that they want to memorize, and you're going to be working at memorizing these poems. So that is that section. Now into Unit 1. This just gives you an idea of how a lesson is laid out. So in the beginning, it tells you any extra items you'll need, which you can see here is only a Bible. So it is very open and go. There's nothing else that I need to go and collect and grab and go to the store and buy. Everything that I need is right here. So I actually keep this in my morning basket, and it's just something we alternate with our science. We do this every second day, and we sit down and we just do it. I don't ever prepare for it. So it's very, very easy to use. So it tells you it's scripted. So what scripted means is that it's actually telling you exactly what you're going to say to the child. You don't need to read it. It's not instructions to the parent, and then you have to try to decipher it and then try to teach that to your child or paraphrase it for your child. Instead, you actually are just going to read this out to your child. So it's very, very easy to use. Then anything in bold is instructions for the parent. So it tells you to spend about 15 minutes. You're going to select poems for the children. Then you're going to read to the children again. And so you pause for answers. I mean, it is scripted. So it tells you everything. You don't have to even think as you do this. You literally can sip your coffee and just go through it like a zombie. If you're really tired in the morning, that's okay. You don't have to put a lot of thought and effort into this. So it is a great, great program for the early morning basket if anyone else does that. So at the end of all of that, it tells you to open up their Student Explorers. Not every day has this, but most days do. And we've put ours together in some binders. Each of my kids have their own. They drew their own covers for it. And we just have each of their Student Explorers. My younger ones have the ones for grade 1 to 3. My older one has the older version of it. And they work through their activity sheets. So they do that at the end of their lessons if it prompts us to. It will prompt us to do our read aloud. So we got the read aloud kit for the year 1 history. So it comes with these 4 books here, which is The Golden Goblet, The American Twins of the Revolution, Nori Ryan's Song, and The Door in the Wall. So it's like $30-something, and I don't know the exact prices of these on Amazon, but if these are, you know, $8-ish each, then you can't even get them that cheap on Amazon. So it is a great price, and it just comes with her top picks for books that you can use from grade 1 all the way through grade 12. So right now we're starting with The Golden Goblet, which is harder for my younger kids to listen to, but now that we're getting into it, it is really a fascinating book to read, and it's about a boy in ancient Egypt. So we read this and it will prompt us directly in our lesson. So that was lesson 1. That's it. It's telling us to do our read aloud and, you know, read this through with the kids, and we're done. Now in lesson 2, you're going to see here that we're having them work on their memorization. I'm reading. They're going to listen to an audio recording. So I'm going to go and pull up the link that I have in this year course book, and then it's going to take them to that, and they're going to listen to their audio recording. Those tend to be anywhere from 8 to 12-ish minutes. Then I'm going to ask them these questions, and I'm going to work on our read aloud. So this just gives you an idea of how easily it's laid out. It is incredibly easy to follow, incredibly easy to do, and there's just no prep required for mom, and it's very easy for the kids to know what to expect, and it's done in a very relaxed environment where you can just sit down and read together with your kids. You don't have to separate this or segregate it and do multiple things with multiple different ages. This is going to cover your history. So I love the course book. As with anything from jennyphillips.com, it is amazing. It's amazing. So that's the course book and the read alouds. Now we have the big book of history stories. Now again, you'll be prompted when to use this inside your course book. So you really just use this mainly, and you're flipping through it, and it will tell you on the lesson you're on which page to read, or whether you should play your game, or whether you should do a read aloud, or whether you should listen to one of your audio dramas, whatever. It's all laid out for you inside your course book. So just to give you an idea of kind of how this is laid out, it's all sorts of different things. Sometimes we've referred to maps in here. There's a lot of stories with beautiful, beautiful, beautiful illustrations. Give you some examples here. So it really is fantastic, fantastic quality. You don't have to have a whole lot of other read alouds because everything that you need is really included with this program. So you'll be using this periodically throughout the course, but again, it's going to prompt you exactly when you're going to use it. So that's the big book of history stories. The last thing that I want to show you here is the Keys of History. This is a board game to help your kids really learn and reinforce what they're doing throughout the course. So it comes with your pieces that you're going to need. You have your little, die and your pieces to move and all that different kind of stuff. All right, so right here you have your board. This is your board that you're going to be working across and around, and it has different facts and information around it, different eras that your kids have been covering throughout the Year 1 course. And then you have your cards here. So this is a great way to have fun with history. I don't know who else has felt like history is incredibly boring growing up, and I don't want my kids to have that same outlook. I want them to understand the lessons that we can learn from our history and to appreciate and enjoy it, because if they're not having fun, then it means nothing to them. And if it means nothing to them, then they're not going to want to retain anything they're learning. So this is the way that it's kind of set up. It's fairly easy to use. You have all your instructions included. It's for 1 to 8 players, so you can do it with a large family group or even together with friends. And you can refer to this throughout your other years of history as well to reinforce facts in the Year 1 course. So just to give you an idea, the purpose of the game is to review key information about key historical figures and events in a fun way. So there's 3 ways to play. You can play cooperatively, where you are going to work together as a team and try to earn more points than you did as a team last time. You can work through it competitive style, and this, can be beneficial or not, depending on your family. And that's when you're playing individually, player by player, adding up your points, or you can play single player. So it is also possible, if you only have one child who's doing this and all the rest of your kids are like in diapers, it is possible to have just one child work through this as a review style game. So there's different ways that you can play it. And again, it's just a really great way to reinforce what you're learning throughout the course. And anytime you're going to use it, you can do it anytime, but it does prompt you as well throughout your course book that you should pull out your game and use it throughout the year. All right, so for those of you that are wondering, what about future years? How does this work and what is out there? So far, Year 1 and Year 2 are already available. Year 3 and Year 4 are coming. So Year 1 covers basically ancient Egypt, right? What I showed you in the table of contents. Year 2, you're going to be learning about ancient Greece, ancient Asia, Vikings exploration. You're going to be learning about colonial America and the U.S. Constitution in Unit 3, and Unit 4 is history of U.S. education, World War I through the Great Depression. Year 3 is ancient Israel, Native Americans and Bills of Rights, U.S. Industrial Revolution, westward expansion, and scientists of the 1800s and World War II. And Year 4 is ancient Rome, the history of Islam, Christianity in the Middle Ages, the Reformation, and the history of the Bible, as well as slavery. So one of the concerns that seems to be coming up is that perhaps the Good and the Beautiful history is not culturally diverse enough. So I just want to approach that really quickly and let you guys know that African American history was always on the timetable to come into Years 3 and 4 of history. So those are coming up, okay? So there's going to be a lot of content covering that. They are also planning in the fall to hopefully introduce some of the African American history as well into Year 1, so that those people that are just starting out with the history program don't have to wait until Years 3 and 4 to start teaching their children about that. But it is planning on, the goal is that if you're doing this program for the complete 4 years, that you will get a very historical and cultural overview of world history and American history. So that's not something that needs to be a huge concern. If you've been wondering or worrying about that, don't worry about it any longer, because it's coming. And Native American history is also included in Year 3 as well. So there's a lot of content to expand the horizons and make sure that everything is covered. So now I want to talk to you guys just briefly now that you've kind of seen inside all of this, I want to talk to you about how you can actually use this program. What kind of homeschoolers are going to find this program useful, and just go on to a more of a practical standpoint. So first and foremost, we've already talked about the fact that really young children are probably not quite ready for this, and that if your kids are 4 and 5 years old, it's best to, in my opinion, it is best to do your social studies more from just discussion and getting out there, learning about their community. They don't necessarily need to be learning about ancient world history when they're 4 and 5 years old, unless they're fascinated by it and are asking you and you're teaching them in story form and they want to learn more, in which case, go with it. But for the most part, that isn't necessary at those ages. That is not being taught at those ages. Kids aren't necessarily going to retain it at those ages. So it's just be relaxed. Take a breath. It's going to be okay. For your older kids, depending on your family dynamics, and everybody is really, really different in this. So if you have, one child, or if you have multiple children, if you have kids that are in older grades or younger grades, that's all going to affect how you're going to use this program. But the way that I use it is as simple as what I explained in the beginning, in that we put this into our morning basket. We do not do our history every day. I find it too much for my kids. So I alternate it with science. I have some real interested science learners. So I alternate it with our science, and we do it in our morning basket, and I have both our science and our socials or our history, as well as our Bible in our morning basket, and poetry and whatever else. So we sit down and we basically read for an hour, whatever that might look like. So when we're doing our history, for the most part, I have my iPad out and we just work through the course book, and then the next day we would alternate with our science. So I find that works really well for us. It's not too overwhelming, and we still are moving at a pretty decent pace through the program. So I would recommend that for anybody that is not, really, really, really wanting to get through as much history as possible, to take a slower rate and work your way through it and enjoy the process, because the faster we push our kids through stuff too, it can be harder to retain when there's so much information being pushed at them. So I really enjoy taking our time with it. In that way as well, if the reading is a little bit too intense for your kids, you can also break it up into 2 days. So rather than doing a lesson and alternating it with your science, you could still do history every day, but you could break that one lesson into 2 segments, where maybe you do your read aloud one day and then you do your history course book reading the next day. So there's multiple ways you can use this program and adapt it to suit your family. As far as learning styles and homeschool styles, this works really well for Charlotte Mason homeschoolers. It works really well for traditional homeschoolers. It works really well for most homeschoolers. And the reason is that it is just so easy to use. It is open up and go. There's not any prep that is required for it. There's not a whole lot of extra things that are required for it. So it's very easy to use, it's very affordable to use, and you can do it with a whole family, which means that it's going to save you time having to do history or socials at 4 different grade levels, because you can do them all together. So it can really take the weight off your back and be enjoyable. It works for multiple different learning styles because they're getting that reading, listening, auditory portion together with the looking at the pictures and working in their student explorers visual component, and then they're also getting the hands-on component with something like the game that is included. So it really does cater to multiple learning styles and work quite well, in my opinion, and from what I have heard from multiple families in most homeschool situations. So if you've been frustrated and just want something you can open and go, and you know that it's covering your history, this is going to be a great program for you. If you're concerned, if you're not living in the United States and you're concerned that it might not be covering your local history, then you might want to do something like this for your world history, but do something else to cover your local geography or history as well. So that's going to depend on you and your family dynamics, but it is a very affordable and easy to use program and option for most homeschoolers out there, and I highly recommend it. Even us being up here in Canada, We are highly enjoying it. We might adapt it, take out some of the US content in the further years, and instead impose some Canadian content so that we're getting a good balance. But it still has such a good balance of world history that I'm not too concerned at this point of my kids learning too much or not getting a rounded education. So we personally are loving it, and I think every homeschool needs to have it. So I encourage you to go and check it out and see what you think. There's samples online that you can see. You can read more and find out more about the good and the beautiful using my personal link. You can go to it at homeschoolon.com/go/TGTB, the good, the beautiful. So there you have it. You have just made it through a very long-winded review of a curriculum that I love and that we are personally using and excited about. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope you guys, if you enjoyed it, that you'll hit the subscribe button, because there's more videos like this on my channel and there's more videos like this coming. And otherwise, I hope you have an amazing homeschool week. Homeschool on.